Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. My guest today is the cartoonist behind last year's apocryphal comic book Monday and the upcoming 20th anniversary edition, or nearly 20th anniversary edition of uh, Fox Bunny Funny, both out from Uncivilized Books. Hello, Andy Hartzell. How are you today?
Hello, Tad Eggleston. I'm doing well.
Yeah. Isn't this weekend SPX weekend? Is this like the one con that you're skipping?
No, next weekend is
Oh,
SPX.
next weekend is
Yep,
SPX.
I'll be
Okay.
there.
So you'll have back-to-back weekends. You'll be at SPX next weekend and then Columbus the weekend after that.
That's right. I will see Vox Bunny Funny for the first time at SPX, as I saw
Uh,
Monday for the first time at SPX.
right.
In
Well, and I bought Monday at Columbus, so I'll buy a Fox Bunny Funny from you at Columbus again.
Cool, cool.
So actually, I can't remember if I bought it or Tom just made me take it. One of the two. I would have paid for it. It was good enough to pay for, but I don't think I ever walk away from the Uncivilized booth without at least one thing that Tom just decided that I needed to read.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Were you the one where we had the conversation afterwards? Did he pay for it? I don't remember. No, I don't know. I think you paid for it.
I mean, I know I paid for a lot of things while I was at the table.
Uh,
Um, because there were a number, I mean, I think I spent $90 at the Uncivilized table because I was behind on things. I needed Matt's book and I forget what else.
they're not cheap. Graphic novels are not cheap.
No, but they're worth it.
Yeah.
They're worth it. And you scribbled in mine. I have a nice a nice
Oh yeah, you got God.
yeah, yeah. God said this book was for me.
Yeah.
So I actually let's go with the new work first. In terms of the new work, because you said in one of our emails that you gotten away from comics for a while, and then we'll get to
Well,
Fox
when you say the new
Bunny.
work, what are you
I
calling the new
like I meant the one that you created more recently. So Monday.
Okay.
Let's start with
All right.
Monday,
All right. Yeah.
and then we'll go back to your beginnings and why you've revisited that and what it's like to be back on the con scene, etc. We'll make it up as we go.
Okay.
That's my rough rundown in my head. So tell me about Monday.
Well, so Monday is not the newest one if you actually go back to the beginnings, because Monday was a book that I started over 20 years ago.
Oh wow.
And worked on for a while and then put away, actually did Fox Money Funny afterwards. And then this is probably a not uncommon story. Life intruded. I didn't do a whole lot of cartooning for a long time. Then the pandemic happened, and magically a bunch of time opened up, which got me back to cartooning. And I pulled it out. I had been wanting to finish it for years, and I pulled it out and actually finished it.
You
In
kept your Zoom up over your hands so you could be part of the meeting while drawing the comic, or
uh,
because I know people who did that. Yes, yes, I'm totally part of this business meeting.
I don't think I ever quite did that, but there was definitely some multitasking that was happening at that time.
Right, right. Um, so okay, so it's the oldest and the youngest,
Yeah.
but tell me about the book. Tell me about the
Well, what
what
do I
was
call it on the
the
back of the that metaphysical slapstick suspense comic, something like that.
right. A
Um,
fable for our unstable age.
there we go.
Yeah.
Well, the setup is this is a new story featuring the oldest comic characters, Adam and
Right.
Eve, Snake and God, and it's set in the Garden of Eden on the eighth day of creation, the first Monday, the first day of the second work week of creation. Adam and Eve wake up to discover that God is back in the
Has
garden.
created the time clock.
He's back at work. He's making something. new, and it seems like that something may be threatening to disrupt the entire creation and knock Adam and Eve off the pedestal as the pinnacle of creation. And so that what are they going to do about it is the kind of major dramatic question of the piece. Um, and that's the setup.
Yeah. What, I mean, I love the setup and I love where it goes. It made me laugh and made me think. But I guess what I was really trying to ask is like, where'd the germ come from? Particularly if it's one that's stuck with you for 20 years. What was the seed? What was I want to write about the eighth day.
Yeah, well, there's I can answer that in different ways, but you know, I grew up in the Midwest, moved to the Bay Area and was part of the tech scene for 25 years. Um, and now I'm back in the Midwest. But the story I think really came out of working at a startup and as a creative and going through the usual tensions of kind of the creatives versus producers, right? And all of um all of the sometimes productive, sometimes unproductive tension of that. So in a way, and maybe I didn't realize this right away, I'm imagining the world as a startup. Um, and um, and in my, little cosmos, God is kind of the ultimate creative, right? Who just refuses to be managed. And the snake is the ultimate manager who just wants things to, who wants the enterprise to run smoothly.
Okay.
Um, so, this is kind of it's a fable about the age-old conflict of creatives versus management.
I like that. Um, and I'm gonna come down on the side of there has to be a good balance. I've never met a writer that's not better with a good editor. I've never met a musician that's not better with a good producer.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
And some of my best working experiences were working with just really good producers who wanted to see, us succeed and understood the trade-offs that had to happen and were able to negotiate to make sure that we could actually deliver under time constraints, and
right,
and then there's the opposite.
right.
Yeah.
Which is just we're just
The,
gonna do this. And I mean, I always use the analogy, and I feel like they're big enough that they certainly don't have egos that I'm gonna like crush. But I always use the Metallica analogy because like early in their career, they had solid 5 or 6 minute songs. And by about their fourth or fifth album, they were all 8 or 9 minute songs. And all of those 8 or 9 minute songs, if they'd been tightened into 5 minute songs, it wouldn't even required like taking parts out. It just would have required tightening each one a little bit.
right.
They would have been brilliant, but instead they all have like 30-second segments where it's like, okay, are you done with this? Are you ready to move on yet?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I
and
mean that is
and I
kind of
can
the way
only
the
imagine it was because they got big enough that there was nobody there to say, "Hey, great drum solo, but it would be better if it was shorter."
yeah. And how many, Substacks and things can you say that about, right? I mean,
Right.
we live in an age when it's really, the barrier to entry for many art forms is very low, but the whole, the whole profession of the editor is kind of slowly being eliminated, right? I mean, I heard recently that I think the New York Times is kind of eliminating its critics. It's like theater critics and dance critics and music critics in favor of kind of a more, social media kind of approach. And that's just kind of a sign of the times, right? That editors and critics, are also um, are very important, and the role of the critic in really helping people to understand an art form, to understand people who are trying to do something new, who can't really, who need that critical apparatus to try to explain it to
Right.
the audience, right? And that's kind of, that's kind of gone away, and that's a it's a
Oh,
bad thing.
wait a minute. You mean that a critic's job is to actually dive deep rather than just say this sucks?
Exactly, exactly. And that's what
Oh.
you're doing. That's why we need people like you.
Oh. I mean, because I sometimes say that I'm not big on criticism. What I'm really meaning when I dig into it is that like uh, I don't need to bash things. If I don't like it, let somebody else talk about it. You know, I talk about the things I like and why I like them. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like there's to me there's sometimes too much oxygen given to things that people don't like and why you shouldn't like them either. And that just seems like why?
A lot easier to write about things you don't like, right? Or to
I
talk
would
about things you
think.
don't like because you're putting yourself in a
Right.
plane above them.
Elevated.
So
Right.
you can kind of look down and decon, and there is a pleasure in saying, look, this is why this sucks. I can take it apart. But if you're talking about something you really like, you don't want to take it apart, right? You kind of don't want to, and it, or you,
Oh, I sometimes take it
yeah,
apart entirely, but it's to
but
put it
then you
back
don't like it
together.
anymore because all you have is a bunch of
No.
pieces, right?
I just like to see how the pieces work. I'm the
Yeah.
guy that metaphorically would take apart the radio and put it back together. I was never actually that good with electronics, so I'm not actually that guy, but like I like to look at things and go, "Oh my God, I just realized that you did this with your panel work, and that's
Right.
why it works."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so um so you came back with the pandemic. Talk about Fox because like I love Monday for essentially the reasons that we just talked about, and I'm certain I'll come up with more ways or might come up with more ways to talk about it that aren't spoilery, but I feel like to a certain extent we've given you the intro. Andy's art is at times Escher-esque, at times always funny and slapstick. Um, just go read it. Uncivilized Books. $30 is a steal for the snake as the garden manager who continually pisses off the debutante artist. um, but it's also a very there's similarities, but to me there was a very different feel from Fox Bunny Funnies, in part because Fox Bunny Funnies is completely silent, which I loved, um, and in part because um, I feel like Fox Bunny Funnies had, and this is where I want you to talk about it first, just because, but I feel like its messaging was deeper and more subversive, and the ability to look at it as just pure slapstick was like just ratcheted to 11. There's fun on almost every page, particularly when you get to funny. What an aptly titled chapter. So talk to me about how. Well, first, give us our front counter pitch for Fox Bunny Funny. How are you going to be selling it at SPX? Um, and then talk to me about where that one comes from.
Okay, this is going to be unpracticed because, the
It's
kind of
okay.
sales pitches only emerge in the moment, right? You can't
Right,
prep.
right, right.
But Box Bunny Funny is set in an anthropomorphic kind of society. Two societies, like a city of foxes and a city of bunnies that are right next to each other, but run on completely different principles. The Fox City is run on predation. That's like their main value is being predators.
Of the bunnies.
Of the bunnies, right? And the bunny society is run on victimization, I guess. Being the victims is their um, is what the society is all about. And it has to do with I guess, and you can say an illicit desire of our kind of protagonist character, or a desire that does not fit into the structures of his society, and how this both kind of throws both his own life and the whole society's kind of structure kind of ends up being remixed in a way. See, that's not very good, but it'll get better because I'll be giving the
Well, I mean,
context.
I'll toss out like the one minor spoiler because it only spoils the first part.
Okay.
There is a fox that like is at least bunny curious.
Yeah,
He's interested in what it would be like to spend time as a bunny,
yeah.
and I mean, it seems like the bunnies have more fun.
Do you think so?
Well, I mean, when they're not being hunted,
Yeah,
you know. I mean, it's relative. I mean, how much
right.
fun can you have when you're being hunted? I
Yeah.
mean, there are many different real world things that you could apply this to in a heartbeat.
Sure, sure.
That's one of the reasons that I talked about the messaging being a little bit more subversive because there is that element of like but easy to skip because bunnies are herbivores and foxes are carnivores and they can't actually help that when they're not anthropomorphic. But there's the element of like, why can't we get along? Why are you defined by being bigger? And I don't know if the bunnies, at least I didn't get the feeling that the bunnies defined themselves by their victimhood as much as they
Well, that was the central kind of maybe the central facet of it.
they were defined by their victimhood
Yeah.
by by their by their oppressors. Um, I mean, how many times have you heard the MAGA-ish Republicans say, "I don't have anything about black people or against black people. I just wish they wouldn't like play up their victimhood." Blah blah blah. I'm sitting there going, "I've never known a black person who played up their victim."
Right, right.
Most of them are just trying to get by. I mean, I have a sticker right here on my laptop that says trans agenda, live long, happy lives.
Hmm.
So it's not trans agenda, convince everybody that we're victims. Check.
Right,
And
right, right.
then they go, I feel like oftentimes um in this world, the people who are actually the victims don't don't play the victims as much as they are the victims and your predators not only are predators but like the second anything as with the foxes that are really not understanding how to handle this fox that would like to try
Hmm.
out being a bunny.
Hmm.
The second any part of the order of the oppressors is nibbled at, like they start feeling like they're victimized.
Yeah, sure.
So I mean, and I did a quick reading because I had all sorts of other stuff to read, so I read it this morning, but that was kind of the vibe that I got, and that's why I wanted you to speak first because I didn't want to like put ideas in that weren't yours as much as let you know what I got.
Well, I the beauty of a wordless, any wordless story that, that has kind of a self-consistency to it, I feel like, is that it does it because because it doesn't have words, it's not explained, it's not,
Right.
it's not framed, it's not you don't aren't told in the story what it means. So you know, the reader has more leeway to interpret it for themselves.
Right.
And Fox Money Funny actually has been interpreted in lots of different ways.
Right.
Obviously there's been a lot of, queer and trans and LGBTQ readings of the book, but there's also been, you
I
know,
was about to say I could put it Israel Palestine, I could put it
yeah, yeah.
Russia Ukraine, I
Well,
could
back
put
when it
it
came out, it was Rwanda, that
right.
people were saying
Right.
it as
Yeah.
about. And I think the ending is ambiguous enough too, and that whole funny section that you're talking about is ambiguous enough that it doesn't it's not making, I think, like just a trite plea for tolerance kind of thing. I feel like
No.
it's there's it's more ambiguous and more
I
uh like open to different kind of interpretations.
Yeah, I think it's also more observant than prescriptive. I
Yeah,
actually feel that about Monday as well, because I mean, even with words, it's not clear cut that like God is wrong and the snake is right, or
right,
the snake is right and God is wrong.
right,
It's laying out like the different perspectives and then throwing Adam and Eve in the middle and like that's the whole like worker slash middle management like
right,
uh I have to somehow make both of you happy.
right.
And I don't know if I agree with either of you, but nobody's asked me.
Exactly. Well, and it takes a long time to draw a graphic novel, especially
Right.
for me. And one of the ways that, I mean, if I knew, like, neither book did I know how it was going to end when I started.
Well, that'll lead in the next round of questions.
But both of them, I think, as I worked on them, the ending kind of the obvious ending kind of ultimately revealed itself. And that becomes something that carries you through. You're like, oh, I got to see how this turns out.
One of the things that I am fascinated about in comics, and it's true in most art, but I feel like as so many things are in comics, it's ratcheted to 11, is that like everybody works differently. Some people like even when they're a solo cartoonist will have, a tight script done and then do like thumbnails, pencils, inks, blah blah blah. And others are like, I kind of know I want this, and now I'm gonna sketch the first page. Now I've got 4 pages sketched and they look good. I'm gonna ink them, and now what happens next?
Hmm, hmm.
And everything in between. For that matter, he exhausted himself, but Nate Powell for a while liked having a nonfiction and a fiction book going at the same time because it meant that there were that many different jobs that he could choose from. Do I want to be researching right now, or writing right now, or penciling right now, or inking right now, or coloring right now? Whatever I want to be doing, I probably have something in the room that needs that done. So like you said when you started, you didn't know how they ended. Like what's your process? Where do you start with a graphic novel? Yeah, step me through
Well, it's been
from
so I only
idea
have
to I have a
uh,
thing.
each one's been different. So Monday, I would I did script before I'd script out a scene in longhand, revise it until I liked it, then thumbnail, and I would work in chunks, and basically a scene at a time. Um, with Fox Bunny Funny, it was well, with Fox Bunny Funny, it was a very different process. I actually just drew it for the most, so most of the book is a strict six panel grid, square,
Right.
square panels, six to a
Right.
page. Then at a critical junction, it kind of breaks that format. But so I just cut myself bunch of little kind of note card sized Bristol boards and just worked an image at a time without even thinking about page design,
Oh,
which is
wow.
not how I would have done any other project that I've worked on, and maybe not but for that particular, it just worked for that project. And so I would just go out to a coffee shop or whatever in the morning with a stack of cards and work straight ahead. And I ended up then, discarding some because they didn't kind of work for the flow of the page, and reconfiguring, stuff at the end, after I'd, had this giant stack of single images.
Did
Um,
you mess around at all with like completely changing the format of how you? I mean, because if you work from single images, you could go vertical scroll, you could go huge pages, you could go little pages. I mean,
and this is detailed a little bit in the deluxe almost 20th anniversary edition, as the 18th anniversary edition, because I do include some pages, some discarded pages, um, and a whole ending that I ended up discarding. But at first I thought I was going to do a square format, the square, four panels to a page.
okay.
And so I drew the final sequence, which does not adhere to the grid structure, right? In assuming a square format. And then I showed it to, some friends, some people whose judgment I trusted. And one in particular, Jesse Reclaw, was very had very definite ideas about comics and what works and what doesn't work. And he had, he was very adamant. The human eye was designed to take in six panels per page. That's what it's, that is the actual number. So I did end up.
Yeah, I just have to laugh because I pulled up Jesse Reclaw and the first comic on his website is a four panel comic.
Yeah, see, do as I do, not as I say.
And the second comic is a four panel comic. And the
Maybe he
third
just
comic
didn't
is a
want
four
the
panel comic.
did not want he did not want the competition. That's why he told me this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, everything I've seen so far,
And that's probably, I mean, I'm just kidding, because in his defense, I would say, I think what you're probably looking at are like
Dear
comics,
Diaries.
diary type
Yeah, they're
comic
comic
books.
strips. Yeah, they're
Maybe a
comic
different,
strips.
maybe
Yeah,
different laws apply to the comic
yeah,
strip than
yeah,
to
yeah,
the
yeah. I'm just laughing. That's what came up immediately. Was
yeah,
was a bunch of four panel comics.
yeah. Um, so I ended up reconfiguring as a six panel, and I think it looked good as six panel on
No,
paper.
it looks great. It looks great. I'm fascinated when people mess around with comics. Like one of my favorite comics in the last, or like favorite mainstream comics in the last few years is Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, I think his last name, did an issue of Nightwing
Mhm.
where it could be turned into a scroll. The whole
Mhm.
thing. I literally bought a digital copy so I could do screenshots to have my wife color print. and
Oh,
put together as a scroll, so I could just read it across. I know comic shops that took apart like two copies because you got the pages so that they could put it across like part of their wall to show off that like um there's an issue of Ice Cream Man coming up that's like a card set where each card
yeah.
is a page or panel and you
Oh,
have to like put them together. And I'm not even certain if there's a specific order or if it's designed to be a choose your own adventure type thing.
interesting.
I like it when people screw with the medium. So I had
Yeah.
to ask,
Yeah, I like that stuff
because
too. And often
when you've
those,
got that stack of cards, there's just so many different things that you could
it's true.
do.
Yeah, I mean, I did turn one sequence into like 3D slides, which I'm going to bring to with me to the cons.
Okay,
You can,
cool.
you can view them as individual slides with a 3D viewer.
Awesome.
Um, and yeah, I remember doing back in the kind of mini comics days of the early aughts. I like there was one again, I think Jesse Reclaw's idea called Bizarre Love Triangle, which was a pyramidal shaped comic
Okay. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those.
where, yeah, that opens up and each chapter is a different kind
Right.
of
Right.
triangle of the pyramid. And I did one, and Josh
I've
Franco
seen
did one, Jesse did
I've
one.
seen some and I was never able to fold them, but like when I was in middle school, like the girls all had those paper folded things that they would open and
Yeah,
close X number of times. I've seen people do comics on those where it's
yeah.
like,
And I
I
know
pick up.
that I'm forgetting the name of the cartoonist, but Tom of Uncivilized Books sells a an endless comic.
Yep,
You know
I
that?
have that.
Yeah,
That I was about to bring that up.
yeah, yeah.
You know. So yeah, I mean that's one of the things I mean, there's so many things I love about comics, but like the one of the biggest things that I love is like there are no boundaries.
Yeah.
If you can imagine it, you can find a way to express it in comics.
Hmm.
It might mean completely blowing the doors off of what people consider comics. Um, but like that's just more fun. I
And
mean,
more, it makes you stand out at conventions too.
yeah, that too. Um, so after your decades in Silicon Valley, what's it like to be out on the convention circuit now? And did you do convention circuit before that? Is this a return to the convention circuit
Yeah,
or
yeah, it is. I mean, I started in the 90s and I lived in Las Vegas in the 90s. That's when I really started cartooning. And I had a strip in some free weeklies at the
right,
time, um, which I would most of what I would then go to Kinko's when they had their midnight half price specials and make zines out of it.
right, right,
And I would go to the San Diego Comic Con at the time when you just wait till the guard's back is turned and sneak in and set up at an empty table with all your stuff. It was a very different kind of place back then.
right. That's
So,
great.
yeah, and then when I moved to the Bay Area in 2000, that's when I kind of got a little more serious about cartooning, and I did the convention circuits. I did the West Coast, Ape and San Diego and things like that through and I guess I hit a couple East Coast cons in the aughts, and then the teens is when I kind of trailed off and got involved in other stuff and so you asked what it's like to be back in the Midwest and doing the I only returned to the Midwest like 2 months ago,
Well,
so I haven't done.
I didn't say Midwest. I just said back to the concert. I mean, if you want to tell me
Oh,
what it's like
okay, okay.
back in the Midwest, that's fine too.
That's a different subject.
But that's a whole
Um,
different subject.
it's it's cool to be back in the convention circuit. It's gratifying when people remember. I'm almost surprised when people remember me. Um, and even remember picking up some of my those kind of obscure books in the 90s that I that there's some people that are still going to the cons and can remember some of the stuff I was doing back then. Obviously there's a whole new generation. There's a lot more people in masks than there used to be in the 90s. um, but it's just
Well, I mean, we've had that whole thing. I don't know if you noticed it. Maybe maybe you're too busy working, but oh, wait a minute. No, you said that's when you started drawing again. So you should know about the
yeah,
masks.
I do know about the pandemic. Um, uh, uh,
I mean, with cartoonists and tech people, I never like to assume that they know about the outside world. Most of them do. Most of them are way too wired in and like convinced that the world is ending and probably right. But some of them just like haven't looked up from their desk in 15 years. And that's cool too, if that's what makes them happy.
mhm.
Particularly because like I often like the results of that. I mean, we had Terry Moore on, and he said the funniest thing he ever hears at cons is people are like, "Oh, I love this, I love this." So you travel a lot? He's like, he's like, I've been sitting at a drawing table for 16 hours a day for 30 years now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, some cartoonists have more of a work-life balance than that, but I'm always it's always interesting to see. Um, Give me your comics biography, and by that I don't mean your bibliography. We've hit a lot of your bibliography, and you can certainly hit other books that you've done if you want. But what I really mean is like talk about your experience with comics through life. Like when did you start? What did you start on? Um, what made you decide that you wanted to do this? What inspired you? That sort of thing.
Well, I think unlike most of the other cartoonists I know, especially people, kind of my generation, I did not grow up with the superhero comic books, really. I mean, I grew up in the country. There weren't any, it was before the internet. There were not really comic book stores around. So the comics so it was really newspaper comics,
Okay.
which was still
We love our newspaper comics here.
it,
We have a
you know,
quarterly newspaper comic book club.
well, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Comics are comics, man.
it was definitely a more vital art form. Obviously, when I was a kid, and I was into Peanuts. I was really into Calvin and Hobbes, of course, and I was into Bloom County and all these sorts of things, and like Broomhilda and Hagar the Horrible and the Wizard of Id, and I would. I would cut them out of make little books out of them. I would like cut them out of the newspaper and make little books out of them. And the comic books were, it was the Dell Archie Digest or the Dell comics and the Archie Digests and Mad
Right.
Magazine. And then I did have my dad had the Great Comic Book Heroes, which is, was the Jules Pfeiffer introduction, and it's basically all the origin stories of the DC and Marvel,
Right.
characters. So the golden age and early silver age kind of stories. And so I would pour through that. And there was a short time where the very early Batman and Superman comics were being republished in like extra large editions with kind of a gold
Right.
cover, and those were for sale in just dime stores and stuff like that. So I picked up a bunch of
Right.
those. So my experience of Batman and Superman were like the 30s and early 40s Batman and Superman. I really was not even aware of what was going on in kind of contemporary mainstream comics. I was into animation, I was into Disney, I was into the Warner Brothers cartoons. I was really into like if I could old Fleischer cartoons and things like that when I could find them. I would collect Super 8 movies. And was really interested in the early days, the silent cartoons and really early um comic strips, when I could find them. And when I went to college is when was it what's the name? Turtle Clip. The Crazy Cat reprints started coming out.
Okay.
And that really, I mean, that was a really big deal to discover the early Crazy Cats, and the Crumb Comics compilations that I started acquiring when I was in college. And that kind of coincided with the black and white boom of the early mid 80s, and the um the comic book store as a phenomenon. So I went uh, to University of Michigan, and I can't remember the name of the comic book store there that I would hang out in, but buy these neat stuff, and early eight ball, and um you know Reed Fleming, the Milkman, and all of these
Right.
sort of now kind of obscure black and white indie comics of the 80s. And that's what really got me. I drew comics as a kid. I drew a comic in high school newspaper and things like that. Um, I went to college thinking I wanted to be a playwright. And then I discovered comics and thought, well, this could be more fun. There's
I
kind of
don't have to deal with actors.
doing. It's more, I can just put out my own books. And so I started drawing comics right after I got out of college, I guess. Sorry, my dog is noticing that
That's
there's something
completely okay.
outside.
He's cute.
Um,
She's cute. They're cute. I
yeah.
don't want
Um,
to misgender the dog.
no, that can be. Uh, so I mean, that's kind of the early, I guess, comics biography. Later I discovered Tezuka, and got really into his stuff, and some of the other manga. And I discovered the French, the L'Association cartoonists, the Johann Svar and Louis Trondheim, and those guys, and I was really into them for a while. Um,
It's all some good stuff.
yeah, but I always, when the talk turns to Marvel and DC, I often find that I still have lots of kind of blank spots in my education when it comes to that stuff.
Which is, I mean, to a certain extent, I probably read more comic books than 90% of the people I know, because the people who are even close in terms of the number of comics that they read also make comics, which like takes up more of their time than teaching high school does, believe it or not. Um, I can squeeze comic reading in between things at school. They can work or read and not do both. And sometimes when they've been working all day, the last thing they want to do is look at the comic.
Right.
um, but I have massive holes in my Marvel and DC knowledge, because like I could not have massive holes in my Marvel and DC knowledge, or I could know about other things.
Right.
If I got to decide, I tend to and don't get me wrong, I read my share of superhero comics. Um, but it tends to be more, I wind up reading superhero comics because somebody that I like their writing somewhere else is doing a superhero comic, and it's like, oh, I need to see this then. Or someone whose art I like somewhere else is suddenly on a superhero title, or enough of the right people have been raving about something for long enough that it's like, okay, I'm gonna go get caught up on it now.
Yeah.
You know. Um, I can't I don't want to say I can't imagine actually keeping up on all the superhero stuff because I know a handful of people who do, but
Mhm.
like my biggest thing is I don't care about continuity enough.
Yeah.
I like a good story. I like good character development. Um, when your continuity is that big, most of the character development actually happens in spurts in arcs and maybe erased in a different arc by a different creator. So, like, trying to keep track of the character development over 60 years.
Yeah.
So,
I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, I had a friend in the 90s. I was a caricature artist in Las Vegas, and I had a lot of friends who were into comics, and one in particular really trying to get me into the X-Men. And I just, just all of those little, C issue,
yeah.
X
Well,
volume
and
X.
I even have the greatest. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid, and like, because I started on comics because I inherited my dad and uncle's collection. So it was all of these 70s and 80s Marvel comics. I was that kid that when it said see whatever, I'd be flipping through my comics. Do I have that one? Let me go see that.
Right, right.
I had notebooks with lists of I need to find this comic and this and why I needed to find the comics. Like this is referenced in this comic.
Yeah, yeah. It just kind of makes me tired.
Well, by the time I was like 10, uh, I spent that energy on baseball stats rather than which
Yeah,
comic to go find. Um, but I get where it comes from in terms of like the itch that it scratches for a
yeah,
certain type of mind.
yeah. No, I do too.
Um, and like, I mean, to be honest, I'm like that with Daredevil.
Mm.
I've read almost every issue of Daredevil, and at one point, I'm certain I will have read almost or will have read every issue of Daredevil. I have read every issue of Daredevil since like 1980. So I'm just still catching up on some of the old ones, but I don't have the encyclopedic memory of that. I'm happy that there's a guy that started a website like when the internet was young that he still has going, and I can go there when I need to know.
Now, would it bother you if continuity was completely broken in
No,
Daredevil?
it's happened. It's
Yeah,
happened. Um, I just try to look at it separately.
yeah.
You know, I get the people who do get upset. But at the same time, I spent enough time in my life writing and certainly enough time in my life reading that it's like I get why they have the big like universe continuity reset events because that allows the next generation of writers to have a kind of clean slate to work in rather than having to go back and not contradict 50 years worth of whatever.
Right.
Have to try to, I mean, particularly because like I don't think Stan and Jack knew that they were creating continuity.
Hmm.
I mean, they started having stuff cross over a little bit relatively early, but like I think it was probably 10 years into Marvel and like 50 years into DC before you had people who were really trying to make certain that I mean, Superman didn't originally fly. You know?
True. Yeah, he left.
You know, Batman used guns.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and
Um,
I actually having this conversation with Tom yesterday, and you should, when you finally do get him on your podcast, you should have the conversation because he has a lot more worked out ideas
yeah,
about how how the shift happened, where the shift of kind of not really caring about continuity, where every episode could be kind of self-contained,
right,
to all of a sudden, no, we things have all all of the superheroes have to live in the same universe. They have to
right,
be able to, there has to be that sort of operability between them. And that's paralleled in in the world of TV and sitcoms and stuff like that, where there was a time when maybe the family in the sitcom had a dog in this episode because the plot has to do with because the dog runs
And
away.
then you don't see the
Then the
dog
next
ever
episode there
again.
is no dog
Right.
because there's no need for a dog and
Yeah,
nobody
no,
cares.
no writer remembers that there was a dog for 10 more years. And then somebody's like, whatever happened to
Yeah, yeah. And there's something that changed in the sensibility of of all these media where suddenly continuity becomes much more important. And I mean, you go into folklore and things like mythology and things like that, you could or early cartoons, obviously, Wile E. Coyote comes back at the beginning of every new cartoon, even if he was blown up at the end of the old cartoon. I mean, you there's just not a need to you have these elements that remain consistent and you can keep remixing the elements and have new stories with those elements, but the need for some kind of comprehensible continuity is not there.
I would imagine that the shift came first with people holding on to their old issues and then reprints and then really hit overdrive when there started being um repositories of information.
Yeah,
So like the book that you brought up was the Jules Pfeiffer,
the great comic book heroes.
the great comic book heroes. I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the early points of things starting to come together, just because, okay, now this exists outside of the pages of the
Yeah,
comics.
the hardback.
And
I've heard lots of people reference that particular
and
book.
and then when you start having like the history of the Marvel universe, or the Marvel heroes A to Z, or but then when you finally have like everything's collected and it's in your public library, and then everything's digital and you can reference back it's different. I mean, if I really wanted to get all philosophical, it probably also has to do with as the real world becomes less and less tethered to like continuity and fact,
Hmm.
the people who are escaping into comics become that much more like attached to the idea that things are supposed to be a certain way.
Because you're trying to make it more real. You're trying to kind of nail
Right.
it down. This is a universe, and if it's a universe,
Right.
it needs to have kind of
In our real universe, an insurrection became a family cookout at the Capitol Rotunda, but but in the Marvel universe, Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
right. Yeah,
You
that's
know,
that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way.
this
I
is how
mean,
my brain works.
yeah, yeah. But I
And
mean,
now I'm
yeah, it,
really gonna
it
have to have
is
this
because of
conversation with Tom.
the emergence of the fan and the super fan and writing for, and the ability of the fans to make their voices heard and
Hmm.
to talk back to the writers, and that whole
Starting with cons and then social media, and
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I have I'm I haven't done any comics with licensed characters and I don't have any kind of knowledge of that, although but I did work for about 4 years for Telltale Games, and got to work on licensed properties, from Sam and Max, Back to the Future.
I was about to say, I see
Um,
Back to the Future here
you saw that like on my some
on your web page. I
oh,
may
okay.
have that up
Oh,
on,
okay.
on the other half of my screen.
Yeah, Law and Order, some others, and Wallace and Gromit, and it was especially, well, it was interesting writing, writing and having those forums and having the fans weigh in. And the way those games were created, we were doing one a month. We do like a run of 6 to 8 games and release them monthly so that you would be getting the real-time feedback as you're writing, and that real-time feedback could kind of ultimately could affect the storyline. So I kind of got some of that, and there is a certain joy to writing for fans. For like, no, okay, I know that they're really going to eat this up if I put in this
Right.
reference or this. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this is one of the things that's always baffled me about the comics world is it seems to be split into like three groups, at least in the con scene. You've got your super indie, where if there are any publishers at all, they're Uncivilized and Silver Sprocket. But for the most part, it's guys who stapled their own comics together or paid for their own whatever. And you've got those festivals slash cons, and then you've got stuff like SPX or Cake or whatnot, where maybe Fantagraphics or Drawn and Quarterly are there, but you're not going to see. I mean, I guess this year there was one guy at Cake that's got a decent rev. I'm trying to remember who it was even, but has done a decent amount of mainstream art.
Mm,
But one in the entire room
right.
had done anything at any of like the big five Wednesday Warrior type companies, except that there's now this split because in some ways, like some of the publishers that are Cake are bigger than your Wednesday Warrior type companies because there were people there who had stuff from Scholastic, there were people there
Mhm.
who had stuff from Abrams, right? And those actually often outsell. I mean, I was talking to Greg Rucka yesterday, and he just got a TV gig, and one of the things he said that he'd been talking about the people in the writers' room with is how different the scale is between floppy comic writing and TV. It's like you're a massive hit with your Batman comic if there's a pre-order of 500,000.
Mhm.
If you have 500,000 people watch your streaming show, you're done.
Yeah. Right.
You failed.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know where I was going with that, except that like I think that like the people as I get to know them are so similar and like so many of the same things. So it's weird that they put these guardrails up between them, that there are so few people that see. One of the reasons I like CXC so much is it's the one con that I go to where I see people from all of the worlds,
Yeah.
both among the exhibitors and among the guests or the visitors.
Yeah, I
You,
think it
you
used to be
know,
a little more. There used to be a little more kind of flow between the kind of at least that kind of mainstream sensibility
right,
and the more indie sensibility. And I think, I think as Marvel and DC have become these multi-platform franchises and all the movies and all that, it's separated more
right,
um because the mainstream has become so dominant.
right,
And so indie has kind of separated away from mainstream.
right. But I was even just thinking about some of the smaller license stuff, I mean, I've been really, really happy to see how many of the people that I know from the indie comic scene have been taking part in IDW's Godzilla versus whatever city.
Ah,
Carolyn Cash did one for Chicago, and Jesse Lonergan did one for Boston, and um, Dave Baker did one for LA, and that sort of thing. But like even when it comes to like doing an Adventure Time or a My Little Pony,
Mhm.
or all of these smaller-ish licensed stuff. The number of times I've seen people who I'm sitting there going, I don't want to and I won't name any names because I try to forget them because they're all good people. But where I'm sitting there going, like, you're turning your nose up on what would have been a life-changing gig if you got and talking about how you would never do that because I don't want to sell out and do licensed stuff. And it's like, you don't want to sell out and do licensed stuff? Wouldn't you love to be able to do your stuff and not work at Target?
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you were just saying, I mean, the people I know who have done My Little Pony say pony cons are the best. They're the nicest people in the world. I've never been to one, but I kind of want to go to one just because of the handful of writers and artists that I've ever had on that have done any My Little Pony work and gone to pony cons because they are the nicest people in the world. They make certain that we're fed and hydrated and get breaks, and all of the people coming through are nice and actually know your stuff and don't just, bring you that stack of things that they want to take to that grader.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, there is something to going to a con where everyone just, is just there for the love of it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, that's just what I thought about when you said that you actually kind of enjoyed doing the licensed stuff sometimes, because it is. I mean, and for that matter, I remember we had a great conversation with Box Brown, who wrote a book the last year, or the year before, called The He-Man Effect, that
Oh.
that is essentially all about the monetization of nostalgia. But he was also like completely honest. He's like, that being said, I have a room full of action figures. You know? Um,
But you can't write about something like that unless you get it
right.
right, right?
But that's also the thing is like, I mean, one of the most talented writers I know who's written his own stuff for TV, his own stuff in comics. I've never seen him more excited in his life, except maybe when his third son was born, than when he got a Star Trek writing gig in
Mm,
comics. Like he was like, I'm writing Star Trek now. I'm
yeah.
like, I guess I need to go learn about Star Trek now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was intimidating to be given like the Back to the Future franchise and then to work with Bob Gale, the original writer.
Right?
Um, and because you know that there are, I mean, I saw the movies, I love the movies, but there are people who just know it so much
Right.
more. And there's always it was always a part of me that was like, I can't do this because I'm not, I'm not steeped in it the way other people are, and I'm gonna make a mistake. Um,
I've heard a lot of people argue that that's an advantage because if you're too steeped in it, you only want to feed them
yeah,
rather than doing something.
yeah, and but I mean, and like that one in particular was great because we did have Bob Gale there, so we could
Right.
kind of we could
Hey, Bob, what did you write about this?
I mean, we could come to him with all kinds of, crazy ideas, and then he
Would
could,
Doc Brown ever say this?
and yeah, and he would kind of bring us back in. So it was kind of a
And you did remember that Doc has a dog, or did the dog get forgotten? Einstein.
well, most of the series was set in the early 1930s, when Doc is
Oh, okay.
the age of Marty, when they're the same,
Oh,
they're
okay.
both young.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I don't think the dog ever appeared in in our version.
You just forgot about the dog.
Yeah. Well,
Like
he
old
would not have been born
sitcoms.
yet. He would not have been born yet.
Well, if I
Although,
recall correctly, he had almost the same dog in the 50s named Copernicus.
oh
So
yeah,
like in the
that's been
20s,
long
he
now.
would have had
That's right. He would have had, I don't know, Aristotle.
Galileo.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think we got the dog, but we weren't able.
Sorry, the only reason it popped into my head was your comment about sitcoms having the episode about the lost dog and finding the
Right.
dog and then never seeing the dog
Yeah. Well, I think,
again.
yeah, maybe we were a little bit into that trap.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's about how much the dog was in the movies. It was the joke between, okay, it's the same dog, but in the 50s it's Copernicus, and in the 90s it's Einstein.
Einstein.
And then I think he took it with him to the 1800s, but I don't remember.
Well, what about the one set in the future? Was there a dog in? No, it's Doc.
Well, because he was dead.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Haven't watched those in a while. I might need to.
No, I haven't either.
Time travel is
Time travel is
fun to
difficult. You're
play
right.
with. It is. No, I imagine it
We
is.
got into these
Because
crazy looping conversations about causality in the course of
right,
trying to quantify
among
it.
other things, like you have to decide what rules you're abiding by because even if you play things mostly fast and loose, if there aren't some inherent dangers to the time travel that you're doing,
Right.
um, it becomes less
Yeah.
interesting,
Yeah.
you know. But there's so many options for rules. Are you in a
Yeah.
universe where you can have seven of yourself at the same place at the same time? Or are you in a universe where if you see yourself, all of creation winks out of existence?
Well, my main writing partner for that series, Mike Stanley, was the kind of pedantic stickler for content, for making sure that the time travel rules were followed, and then I was the one who was always trying to suggest things that broke that continuity, and he'd usually win the arguments, and we'd.
I bet you it would turn into something better than either one of you would have done, though,
I
because of
think
that.
so. I think
You
so.
know, I mean, that's this. I mean, uh, we've only talked to a handful of writing teams, and all of even more than like writer artist teams or whatnot. Like how they split up writing duties, how they work as a team differs wildly, but the one thing that generally they seem to have in common is that they each bring something very different to the table,
Mhm.
so they complement each other in some way. Um, like an example that I love to use is that like one of the comics that I've enjoyed over the last few years is called Undiscovered Country, and it's like this dystopian future where the US is completely walled itself off from the rest of the world, and then like a disease starts breaking out in the world, and rumor has it the US has the cure, and they invite X number of people in to come, and everything goes from there. But
Sounds interesting.
yeah, initially I was but then I looked at it and I'm like, wait a minute. It's Charles Soule and Scott Snyder working together, and I adore Scott Snyder's world building,
Mm.
but don't always I don't always like his work as much as everybody else does because I think that sometimes he does so much world building that he forgets the character building.
Mm.
And vice versa is true for Charles Soule. I adore his character building, and sometimes I think he's got these great characters in a world that he didn't quite figure out and it kind of unravels. So you know what? You put the two of them together, and sure enough, I've loved it.
Yeah.
So um,
But it kind
Yeah.
of takes a while to hit. You said you were kind of so-so on it at first, but it didn't
No,
quite
no,
work.
I jumped in pretty quickly. I was so
Okay.
when I heard about it.
Ah,
And I was so when I heard about it, in part because it's like, okay, this is an interesting comic or concept, but I'm only so on Scott Snyder. I mean, these are in among Wednesday Comics people. These are both A-list writers, but
right.
they're both A-list writers that I have generally not liked quite as much as other people have liked them. So I wasn't initially sold because neither one of them are, oh, they have a new book. I have to buy it for me. But then I sat back and thought about, oh, why is Scott Snyder not somebody that I automatically buy books from? And why is Charles Soule not somebody that I automatically buy books from? And oh, they could be perfectly complementary. Yes, I'm buying issue one, and we're going to hop on this train and see where it goes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
um,
mean that was all my cartooning, I'm a solo cartoonist. I mean I've done little kind of, experimental just kind of zine kind of collaborations with people, but again working at Telltale, that was kind of a revelation for me, how you could create something in a group and it could be greater than the sum of its parts. And
yeah,
to write something and then have the animators take it up to the next level,
right.
or to come up with an idea and then have other writers that kind of bring their own strengths to burnish that idea. I mean, it was
Right.
a really kind of joyful kind of experience working there.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I'm gonna move us into my favorite closing question just because I don't want to take up your whole afternoon as much as I'm enjoying myself. We'll get to see each other in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me something you love, preferably a comic, but we don't really have rules. Preferably storytelling, but again with the rules. But something that you love that not enough people around you have experienced and you'd like them to, so you have more people to talk about it with.
Okay.
And no limits if you're somebody that sits there going, I can't give you just one thing, then give me 10. Whatever. Again, we're a comics podcast, so I love it when it can be a comic, but like Andrew Iden said his tomato garden. So like
Well, okay, so and maybe I won't say a comic. I mean, there's because most of the comics that I love are going to be things that lots of people love. Although I could sit here
Well,
and
I mean, Nate Powell went with new X-Men books because like he hadn't read X-Men in 20 years and he'd gotten back into it and he's in the indie comic scene, so nobody around him was reading it. So so it doesn't have to be, it could be more personal.
let me think. Well, what I will say, and this is hmm,
And I
hmm.
do love that you're doing the reverse of most people. You're looking up in the air and thinking. Most people with a bookshelf behind them would be spinning around and scanning their titles. That's what we get 90% of the time. Is like, where's the book? Or unless there's a bookshelf in front of you, too. I don't know. But you seem to be searching your memory rather
Well,
than the shelf.
I'm like if there's several possible directions that I could go.
Yeah,
I've
we'll
already
take them all.
um uh well, so I'm also so my other half, my husband is a musical theater writer, and I am
Okay.
one of those. So I'm also kind of a musical theater queen. And there's
I love
and
musical
I
theater.
and I see a lot of commonality and there is something very similar between comics and musicals that I find really interesting, that I'm surprised that there are not more people who are not into both, because both of them are essentially these impure art forms. Like, the reason both forms are dismissed is because they're, you know, comics is both writing and art, and and there are a lot of people who object to putting writing and art together and turning it into something, it's like that's neither one nor the other. That's neither fish nor fowl. And this is why a lot of people consider it
I
sub
mean, because I mean that's why everybody eats plain hamburgers too. Because I mean, clearly you should never ever mix
right. But when it's
mix
working
good
well,
things.
when it's this dance between writing and art, and neither one dominates, then
Right.
it becomes this purely
Yeah.
joyful kind of thing
Oh, absolutely.
cannot be it cannot be turned into its component parts. And I think that the same is true with musicals, that
Absolutely.
they're both drama and music. And for that reason, a lot of people find them to be, a lesser art form because
No.
they're not
No.
but when that dance, when the music and the words and the story just lead in and out of one another perfectly, then it's raised to this great new level. So I wish there were more people who could like do that code switching and talk about both.
You are in really good company with Howard Chaykin.
Oh, okay.
Howard Chaykin is a massive music theater fan.
I didn't know that.
He goes to both New York and London every year just to take in shows.
Hmm.
Really big Sondheim fan,
Yeah.
really big
Smart.
old school,
Yeah. Yeah.
like old Damon Runyon type Guys and Dolls type
Guys and
stuff.
Dolls,
Yeah,
Lesser.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
there's something, I like comics that have that kind of theatrical sensibility to them too. That have that kind of artifice to them. I like artifice. So
Do you have any favorite musicals?
I mean, I am a big Sondheim fan. I love, I guess Follies and
That is
Company.
also Howard's favorite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Um I'm a Frank Lesser fan too. I love Most Happy Fella, which is like his magnum opus. And I like Chess, which is going back to Broadway this year. And I could go on and on, but
yeah. No, that's a good list.
all
It's
right.
a good list, and I will have to go track down Most Happy Fella and Chess because I don't know if I know those two personally. Um, because I'm just the wrong generation to have been around a lot of musical theater people,
Yeah.
just young enough. But I was blessed that like my best friend in high school, she's still one of my best friends, was the music theater geek, got
Uh,
her master's at Boston Conservatory, that sort of thing. So like I'm not unversed. I just like between not having the time or money to go to it and not having a community of people around me that were all over it.
right.
Does that make sense? um, and again, like I feel like I feel like the Andrew Lloyd Webber era of musicals has kind of become a different era of musicals. Uh, Um, and this is not to like slam him. I know a lot of people who love lots of his stuff, and I don't dislike all of it. But like what you were talking about in terms of the words and the music and the guts and the like storytelling, I think for a while in the late 80s into the 90s, there were a lot more that were just pretty.
Yeah, and I think
And
you got that sort of Paparetta, that
right,
Weber school, really started. It developed more from concept albums. Like the
right,
musical theater developed out of vaudeville and musical review, and there was a certain way of putting the show together where you got to have the chorus number, and then you got to have the ballad, and you got to have, and it was a more theatrical way of putting a show together, whereas. Um, yeah, the Andrew Lloyd Webber School started as the album, and then
right.
you transfer the album to Uh,
Right.
but it still kind of feels like an album.
Right. Right.
Um, so
And I feel like we're starting. I mean, I feel like Rent and then Hamilton. I mean, to an Avenue Q in between to name the really obvious ones that even the guy who can't go digging up all of the stuff managed to notice started to kind of shift us back, or at least morph us. I think you might still have a little bit of the album dominating, but it went back
yeah, I mean,
to
I
being
like
meteor.
me, yeah, maybe, yeah, yeah. I like comedy, I like musical comedy, and
Yeah.
I think it was yeah right around the turn of the century. Mel Brooks, came up with the producers,
Right. Producers.
Avenue Q, Drowsy Chaperone, Hairspray, all of these sort of com musical comedy kind of came back
Right.
after having been gone for a couple of decades.
Right. Well,
And
and particularly because I mean, comedy goes in and out of favor in film and in comics, but it gets replaced by like action or drama or some other specific genre of things. Whereas I feel like as the comedy musical went out, it was kind of replaced by the sing-along musical,
mhm.
not the, oh, we're in a more serious period. It wasn't any more serious. It was just easier to sing along to,
Maybe.
or the Disney musical almost. And this is without like bashing too many of the Disney, because in some ways, like during that period, Disney might have been making the best musicals.
Yeah. In the
You
90s, I
know,
think they were.
I mean, Beauty and the Beast,
Aladdin, all those.
Aladdin, Little Mermaid, those were fantastic.
Yeah.
I am far from the the Disney adult, and there is a stretch of movies from like really from Beauty to like The Lion King. And The Lion King I wasn't as big on, but the kind of just slipped hard after that. I thought that it was like, oh my God, these are really good. And not just it's
Yeah, I mean, I'm older than you, so I do
right.
kind of remember yeah, I mean, like I was way into Disney as a kid, but and I was a kid in the 70s when Disney had like
Right.
two movies, and The Rescuers is the only Disney movie that came out
Rescuers was great.
at a prime age,
I
prime
love the
teenage,
Rescuers.
right?
Right.
And then um and so when they kind of hit that stride in the late 80s, it was this, oh my God, Disney can actually they can actually make commercial hits. They can
Right.
actually reach a crossover audience. So that yeah, it was a big deal.
For the first time since like the 30s and 40s.
No, yeah, or yeah.
I mean, this is a whole different conversation. Sometimes I think, and I say this as somebody whose favorite Disney movie might be Fantasia, that the Fantasia experiment um, set Disney back for a couple of decades. They made this thing that the world wasn't ready for, and they decided because of that to like stop making music movies at all and do a lot more dumb live action. And that's where you got your Herbie the Love Bug and all of the early Kurt Russell Disney, boy in the what gray flannel suit. I don't even remember all of them. I just remember seeing them on the wall of a handful of them were okay. I like Blackbeard's Ghost.
The Love Bug is a pretty
I
good.
Yeah, I like the love bug. I like the shaggy dog. But it was this like utter shift, and they didn't really come back to cartoons as more than kids stuff for a while.
I mean, I think maybe you got your continuity a little bit
That's
getting back
entirely
to
possible.
continuity here because
No, that's
what was
entirely possible.
Fantasia like 1942 or something like that, and the Love Bug wasn't for another 20 years after that.
But yeah, but I'm
I
just trying to think what good animated movies
after that, Bambi came after that, Dumbo came after that, Peter
did
Pan.
they come after Fantasia?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then my continuity's blown.
It was more, World War
Oh
II was
yeah,
what,
no, I'm
kind
sorry.
of knocked out,
Fantasia was third. Yeah, okay, screw that entirely. Dumbo was the next year, Bambi was the year after that. Then you had Saludos Amigos, Three Caballeros,
yeah, now so
Make
Ludus was
Mine
the
Music, Fun and Fancy Free, Melody Time, Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Cinderella after that, Alice in Wonderland after that, Peter Pan. Yeah, okay. Just hit me over that. Sleeping Beauty was after that. Why did I
I mean,
think
you could
Fantasia
talk
was so
about
much later?
why Disney kind of lost a step or two in the 40s, but I don't think it might have had
No,
something to
I
do with
mean,
the
now
fact.
I'm looking at it and I don't think they lost a step.
Well, they did
What
because
they did is
Elizabeth
they
Vegas
stopped
is
putting out as
adorable.
many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, they only put out three in all of the 60s, and it was 101 Dalmatians, Sword in the Stone, and Jungle Book. Very good movies, but only three of them, whereas they did five in the 50s, they did one a year in the 40s.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's
So,
because Walt Disney turned his attention more to the parks and wasn't
right,
just interested in movies at the end of his life.
right. Yeah, okay. Overall, that makes me feel better. Makes me feel better that they didn't like make this terrible decision. Um,
But it's interesting that Fantasia is your favorite Disney movie. I always get a little bit sleepy in Fantasia in certain parts of
but I'm
it.
okay with that. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. And the other thing is like what I would really love is if the real Fantasia experiment had happened because originally they had intended to like keep it in theaters continuously and just swap out segments.
Yeah.
I mean, there was supposed to be I mean, I've seen some of the sketches from a
The
Salvador
Salvador Dali.
Dali baseball.
Yeah.
Salvador, my favorite Fantasia segment is actually from Fantasia 2000. I love their Rhapsody in Blue.
I knew you were going to say Rhapsody in Blue. I love it too.
Yeah. I mean,
Hirschfeld, right? Inspired, right?
what?
It was Hirsch like they were going after the Hirschfeld
Mm-hmm.
look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, and I love music. I love comics. I don't love cartoons as much as I love comics,
Hmm.
but like silent cartoons feel more like comics to me.
Yeah,
Um,
they're a lot closer to comics.
you know, I mean, I guess part of it is like for a cartoon that's not silent to work for me, it had better have really good voice acting. And I don't mean really famous voice acting. I mean people who know how to sync well with the image, who manage to get the emotion right, etc. Because nothing can take me out of a cartoon more than if I feel like the audio track is off. Does that make sense?
Oh,
And not
sure.
yeah, not off in like they threaded it wrong, off in like you weren't paying attention to when the lips were moving.
Yeah, I mean, I think too
or,
many.
or or that sounds really happy, but that character looks really sad.
Hmm. So when you say silent, though, I mean, there's not a whole lot of completely silent cartoons out there. Are you talking about cartoons from the silent era? Are you talking about
No,
cartoons?
I mean wordless.
Yeah.
I mean like Fantasia. I mean like a
Mhm.
lot of the Looney Tunes where there's little to no actual dialogue as much as running around to the music.
Did you see there's a wordless, I can't remember the wordless cartoon that came out this year about the animals that survived the kind of post-apocalyptic flood. What is it called? It's a um it's an incredible movie. Um
Is it Flow?
Flow is the movie, yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I know that's the
it's a Bulgarian or Latvian, I think. But it kind of had it was kind of an art house hit in the States. And yeah, it's about a cat who survives this sort of apocalyptic flood and makes common cause with other animal survivors. And it's very mysterious. It's very
Yeah, I think I've only seen the trailer so far, but it's been very much on my list.
you should see it if you like
Yeah.
more
Yeah, yeah.
uh, storytelling.
I do. I mean, I like words too, but like I've become more and more appreciative of the ability to tell stories with an economy of words.
Yeah, I mean, and because comics is a visual art form, and people kind of,
Right.
sometimes forget that. And if you can convey something with a drawing, it's better not to underscore and underline it with words, usually. And Flow does a beautiful job of individuating. Like you know, it's got a bunch of these, only slightly anthropomorphized animals, but it
Yeah.
gives
Yeah,
each
yeah.
of them like a very distinct personality. And you just like what I was saying with Fox Plenty of Fun. I mean, you can interpret it in lots of different ways, but um it's got you the characters are real enough that you can invest yourself in them, and it's very satisfying.
Yeah, I might literally go down and ask my wife if she wants to watch a movie. I think we're both exhausted, so it might be a after a nap and dinner, but she watches like 80% animation. So like
You'll love it.
convincing her to watch a cartoon is never very.
Yeah.
Andy, thank you so much. It has been a blast. You're welcome back anytime. I look forward to seeing you in Columbus and
Yeah.
be
I think I
well.
will
Keep
also
making
be
great
at
comics.
the Pretty Good Zine Fest in Chicago. Will you be there?
I hadn't even thought about that yet. I don't know if I actually knew that one. So the answer is I am 75% more likely to be there than I was 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
Um, because I do love to try to, is it just Chicago Zine Fest online?
I thought it was
Harold
called
Washington?
the Pretty Good Zine Fest is what I know it as, but maybe it's Chicago Zine Fest also. But I think it should be pretty
That
good.
says that says July 19th. But when I
This would
Googled
not
pretty
be this.
good
This is
when I when
October
I
4th, I think.
when I Googled pretty good Zine Fest, it came up on top.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, so maybe no one will show up because they're all waiting for July.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to figure it out. I will
Okay.
have to figure it out. Because I do try very hard to catch um Chicago area and Milwaukee area because I'm like smack dab in between.
Hmm.
Um, so are you going to Milk?
What is milk?
That's the Milwaukee is essentially Milwaukee's version of cake. In fact, they called it milk to
When is it? I know
uh
there's something in Madison in early December that I think I might be going to.
Milk Comic Fest, one day festival, September 27th is what
Yeah,
it
I don't
looks
know
like
about that
this
one.
year. 10 to 4.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna make it to that one.
Huh?
I gotta.
If you're ever in Milwaukee, you definitely need to hit Lion's Tooth bookstore is like one of my favorite independent comic shops slash
Okay.
bookshops
Lion
slash
Tooth.
yeah Lion's Tooth
All right.
on Kinnickinnick.
That sounds
Um,
very Wisconsinian.
yeah. But yeah, no, it's this shop that's comics and books and they have book clubs and they have a wine group and they have live music sometimes. And during the summer, they do cartooning summer camps for kids. Um, it's just a cool little spot with a couple of wonderful owners. It makes sure
Yeah,
to
great.
I recommend it to anybody, and they would absolutely carry your book
Okay.
if they don't already. It would be one that would be totally up their alley.
Nice.
So again, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for Andy Hartzell. This has been 22 panels, and we will see you after the next page.